want to start with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure.
Yeah.
We don't want to break tradition here.
Yeah, all right. Well, that wasn't a tradition, I just started that one. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Did you say you just started that?
Yeah, we never did that before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we only started that within the last...
2 years, right?
I'll
Yeah.
tell you, we're one of the very few towns that still do it.
Yeah. I thought it would just give people, and when we were having big audiences, it would give them something to think about rather than screaming and beating on their neighbors. So, especially the liberty and justice for all part.
Nice thought.
Yeah, that was a thought. Okay, we got the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
I move we delete public forum.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a second on that?
Okay, we've got approval of the agenda.
Second.
All in favor of the agenda? Public forum. Nothing for public forum. I don't think we even have to move to delete it. I don't think anyone has anything. All right. New business. Signed corporate resolution to authorize Rebecca Simpson to open and manage investment accounts.
Everybody's shut their phones off.
Yes.
I highly recommend Rebecca. She started on Tuesday. She's picking up a lot faster than I thought she was going to, so can't keep up with her. She is highly recommended from her references, which obviously references are always going to highly recommend you, but she's got some great accounting experience. She has some municipal experience, having been working on special projects in the town of Scarborough, and she is also a CPA candidate. She just needs to finish her coursework, her testing for the state of Maine to become a certified public accountant. She does personal taxes on the side, and seems very energetic and happy to be with us. And an impeccable background.
Okay. Need a motion to that effect?
I move that we adopt the corporate resolution as stated.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? All righty. There we go. She seemed to fit right in when I stopped by your office. It's almost as though she's been there, you feel as though she's been there forever.
Yeah, she's very personable. I can't say enough, Sim. I don't know if you have anything to add, but I think she's going to work out really well for us.
How's she doing running the teleline? I keep calling it the teleline, but anyway,
Well, she's been working on that BEP. She did help with the payroll warrants, and she's leaving that part, and then we'll get her.
and you'll get it back on.
I'm going to get her trained before she can register people.
Okay. Town manager presentation and discussion of preliminary 13-14 town budget.
Okay, so I'm just going to go through what I have here. I'm going to give you the 50-cent introduction. The information that I have in here is as accurate as possible. We know what the health insurance increases are. This budget assumes a 3% salary increase. I'm meeting with Jeff Cole next week on property, casualty, and auto insurance to make sure those rates are correct. I don't know what's going to happen with the municipal valuation. I won't expect to see that until April or May. And I can assume that any gain in municipal valuation will be absorbed by any increase that we might experience through the RSU. I don't have an exact number from the RSU or a rough guesstimate. So that'll also weigh into the picture. Back, I believe it might have been in October or November, I had the selectmen vote to see if you wanted to choose to pay for the 6-month transitional county budget through 5 yearly payments or as a single payment. We voted to do it in 5 yearly payments. The county right now is reassessing that situation to see what the budget impacts are going to be from the governor. If you look through your Maine municipal, you'll see the list of towns they could possibly lose through revenue sharing. So the county may hold off on doing that 6-month transitional budget, and they may actually opt to have a bill proposed in the legislature to allow counties to bill semi-annually. So we would get 2 bills, which would eliminate the need for that 6-month transitional budget. They would just do business as usual, and instead of on an annual basis, they bill us on a 6-month basis. That's just very, I think that was an off-the-cuff reaction to what we heard from the governor in regards to revenue sharing. I don't know where that's going right now. So the numbers I have here, I met with the public works director, recreation director, fire department. Everything you see here has been discussed with them. They're aware of where we're going. And I will, as I walk you through this, I'll explain to you exactly where I'm going with this budget proposal. This isn't the final budget proposal by any means. I'd like to start on the revenue page. I believe that you all have that. Going through the biggest impact, proposed budget 2, as you go through this whole proposal, proposed budget 2 is the budget that takes out revenue sharing and a portion of excise tax that has been threatened by the governor. I don't know if the legislature is going to follow up on it, but that proposed 2014 proposed budget 2, when you get to the total revenue, that'll be the difference, the $235,000 difference for the town of Arundel. So if you want to flip to the last page of revenue, if everything remains the same, having changed some information based on what we've been collecting, interest income on the general fund isn't quite where I expected it to be, so we're looking at about a $20,000 reduction there. But when you go through and I looked at the year-to-dates to see where we're at on revenue stream, we'd be looking at about $1,586,171 in revenue if we use the $300,000 out of undesignated. Once again, that would be no increase in what we take out of undesignated. This year was $1,575,796. If the revenue sharing and all other cuts go through, this doesn't include the impact to residents as the homestead exemptions are taken away from them. It also doesn't include the impact to the schools through the education appropriations that are being proposed to be taken away. We'd be looking at $1,341,171, which is a decrease of $234,625. I know we don't spend a lot of time with budget because they're all estimates. Revenue because it's all estimates, but I wanted to let you know where we're at, what we're up against with the proposal that the governor has on the table right now. Every legislator I've spoken to says that they don't foresee the legislature voting in favor of that, but we won't know until they actually dispose of it.
Are you aware of the time frames for that whole process to be decided? If there's a veto, but if they don't approve it, he comes back. He's pretty adamant right now. He's not going to do anything at all.
Yeah.
What's the time frame for a final decision?
The earliest, I'm told from Wayne Perry, would be March that we will know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at the earliest. And then the latest is I'm not exactly sure. I believe they're going to pick this one up and attack it head on, because there's a lot of noise going on out there about this proposal. But Wayne said the earliest we'll know is March. And so as I go forward in the budget and creating the rest of the budget, we're going to have a provisional in there for reserves and debt. There'll have to be a provision in there as to what we're going to do in the event we lose that revenue. We can go ahead and approve a expenditure budget and leaving just reserves and debt to take the brunt, or we can come back at a later date and begin going to the departments and saying, listen, we need to cut 20% out of your budget, or we need to cut 15% out of your budget. And it's until that time that we know where that revenue is coming from. If it prolongs too much, it's going to have to be a provision in reserves and debt, because that's the only move we can make it that late in the game. And that's what this budget is going to do. It's going to show you with these impacts what it does to our reserves and debt. I've gone through it, and I'll explain to you which requests weren't forwarded in the budget and why. And at that point in time, The selectmen will make a recommendation as to which way you want me to go with these expenditures. If you want me to go back to the departments to have them make cuts now, or if we want to hold off until we know more, or we have a better idea of what our impact is going to be. It's,
Because this could actually impact our expenses between now and the end of June.
not between now and the end of June, but in order to reach town meeting and know exactly what we're asking the public for, that's what it'll impact. So we're beginning in July of 2013. I don't believe they'll be able to dispose, I was happy to see the revenue sharing check come through this morning from the state of Maine, so they can't move that quickly to impact us considerably this fiscal year. It'll be next fiscal year. So if you want to move over to the town expenditures, I'm going to give you a brief overview, just have you look over what we have here. If you decide this evening we want to dissect this thing, we can go back at that point in time and start beating it up. I have met with, like I said, I met with Roger. I haven't met with Jen, she just got back from a leave of absence. I met with Roger, I met with the fire chief. All of the other departments are fairly flat. I'll start with the Board of Selectmen, we'll go right through these articles. I apologize, as I made these copies and I was double checking my numbers from my spreadsheets because I never have faith in the spreadsheets that I have. I did find that the general assistance and recreation budget pages aren't included in what I've given you, so I'm going to email those to you tomorrow morning. I do have them, they're just not attached here. As you can see, 2013 budget is the current fiscal year. Proposed 2014 budget one is going to be the same throughout the expenditures. The revenue is where the difference was, and the final impact is where that is also a difference. So, Board of Selectmen, 13,389 to 12,389. There was a reduction there because we're not experiencing as much costs in the production of the Aero. We've been doing them in-house, and I don't think Sim can either agree or disagree that I think we've been having pretty good luck with the new folding machine, and I think keeping it in-house will save us considerably. So that's where the majority of the saving was there for the Board of Selectmen, and that'll be a total of $12,389, $1,000 reduction. Planning Board, Selectmen DuBois had recommended that we increase the salary of the Planning Board. Of course, that'll take an official vote of the board. But I did put in additional funds in the event that that does happen. All of the notes, these asides, all of those notes aren't exactly accurate at this point yet until we decide what we're going to do with the planning board. But that was an increase of $2,093 from $62.66 to $83.59. Stop me at any time to ask questions.
So this is what the planning board would be getting, the chairman would get $25 a meeting.
What he gets now.
No, that's what he gets now.
That's what he gets now. What would it go to if we changed it?
That is up for discussion. I don't know, as I said, Selectman DuBois had brought it up. The board would need to vote on how much we want to raise that. I don't know if you want to go to 50 and 30, or what you would propose.
I was thinking in the lines of, maybe a $5 to $10
Per meeting?
Yeah, per meeting.
Okay.
30 and 25? 30 for the chairman,
Yeah.
25 for the others?
I mean, it's not a lot, but it gives them a little bit more,
And that would most certainly, that's what I kind of calculated as I went forward with it, and so the $6,000 should be able to
We'll cover that.
absorb that cost, absolutely.
certainly we'd like to see them get more,
Yeah.
understand the situations.
Absolutely.
And as I said before, I'd be willing to cut my pay here in order to help with that, keep it flat if possible.
And picking up on Dan's point, if we're going to experience suspension of revenue share for 2 years, I know $150 a month, it's nice to have, but maybe we ought to consider suspending our stipend for that period of time as well, just a thought. I know it's a lot of money, but $9,000, maybe we could use it someplace else, to do something else running.
I will take that into consideration, and as we go through each of these items, we'll have those discussions, absolutely. Go to the next page, you're on the appeals board. They just haven't been meeting very much. We were paying more for advertising and printing, or budgeting more for advertising and printing than we were for board salaries. I cut that. The cost of the Journal Tribune is considerable. That would cover 2 to 3 appeals board meetings for the year, which
We
is...
get that in revenue, right?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely, but we budgeted so that we
Right, I
have
understand.
that. So we go from $916 to $666. You know, these are the nickel and dimes that I lose sleep over, because we're trying to figure out how to make our way through this. No change whatsoever to professional services.
You Go back a little bit.
Sure.
So how much of the appeals board, how much of that do we get back in revenue?
Whatever the advertising cost is. So if it's $175 to advertise, we get that revenue back.
Half of them's gotta pay for that.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's the only thing that they pay for, right? Isn't there don't they have to,
There's a fee.
There's a fee.
fee?
Yeah.
Yep,
Right.
absolutely.
And then how much, that fee, how much does it cover? Does it cover most of?
That,
It's $250
Yeah.
application fee, I think it is.
yeah, that fee would cover the majority of the members showing up to the meeting and the advertising, the majority of it, because appeal board members only get $15.75 a meeting.
We budgeted 500, and we get two under revenues,
Okay, so that would be 2 meetings.
2 meetings.
But the problem is that we don't, in municipal government, we don't match revenues to expenditures, and so if we didn't have that amount there, this budget item would be overexpended, and so we have to budget for it, although we're going to get the revenue on the other side. And I might just change that by $1 just because of the numerology, the whole $666. That blow my whole budget out of the water. Professional services, there are no changes. That's pretty much straightforward. Town hall administration, salaries, as I said, that's a 3% increase, and it's actually not a 3% increase because of the new position. There was some cost saving from replacing Lisa. Overtime is the same. Benefits, which is retirement, remains the same. Health insurance did go up about 7 to 8% across the board. And then there's also an additional factor because we don't know what will happen in January of 2014. The rates for our insurance go from January to January. So that gives the buffer, if there's another 7%, increase next January, we'll get through the first half of the fiscal year, and that'll cover whatever it is we need to make up for it.
Can we go back just a second?
Yeah.
Back to professional services.
Sure.
What does it spend on legal
You know it's coming.
I had the same question, I got underline it.
the other day? It's $15,000 for quite a few years, and then we upped it because we were busy with, but what it doesn't seem like we've been in the trenches much this year.
Yeah, we're holding our own right now. Don't know what will happen in the near future, but let's see. Year to date for legal. Year to date, we're only at 3115. So, and this was accurate as of last Friday. So at $3,115. That's a roll of the dice that I'm most certainly willing to take.
But that doesn't include, like, they were, was it Du Bois appeals the other day, so that
Yeah,
had.
It hasn't been billed yet, right?
Yeah, there'll be another few $1,000s, I'm sure, in legal fees in that one. And we're in January, so. Actual in 2012 for legal was $21,205. And then, as I said, this year, year to date, we're at $3,100.
We had quite a few.
Yeah, we were.
Had some,
Quite a few.
had some heavy, not quite a few, but what we did have were quite heavy.
Yes.
You see anything very onerous on the horizon? You know the guy's looking at it day to day.
Yeah, there's a few, there's always the possibility of a legal battle with private ways.
Yeah. that's what I'm saying.
And there are a few possibly in the pipeline right now that one of them just had an appeal, so we don't know how far that'll go with the right to farm, with the Du Bois matter. And knock on wood, other than that, that's all we have in the pipeline right now. So, I'll look at tweaking that. I'll take some further back actuals and try to see if we can finesse that a little bit better. I almost hit on that, but I was gonna see if you can catch me on that.
If he wasn't gonna, I was gonna.
I think I talked to council too, to get a feel from them as to, I mean, we know the appeal was denied the other night from the DuBois operation. We know that's gonna go to Superior Court, and from past experience, I personally have had, that's gonna go to the Main Supreme Judicial Court at some point in time. That costs money. I think we've gotta make that assumption, just based upon the players. But I would talk to Leah, get her feel on it.
We get reimbursed for that if we win the case? No, that's just money.
Yeah, unfortunately.
We had the recount issue, that was up over $10,000. Just over the long run of it.
And that's,
And we won, and we don't get reimbursed.
Right.
and that's the issue with the legal budget is you can go a few years at $3,000 or $4,000, and then that next year, you never know. Exactly. So, let me speak to Leah and see what she has to say. All right, so the increase, as I said, health insurance went up. The total increase in town hall is $5,850. That's for town hall administration, that's not the building itself. That's less than the 3% increase. As I said, we've hired a new person. She hasn't been here for 12 years, so there was some savings there. I think you all realize that town doesn't really run with a lot of extra employees. We don't have a lot of layers of fluff. I just want to make that point clear, because in the event that we get to squeezing these budgets a lot harder, we're going to have to look at reorganization and figuring out how we're going to run with less. Once again, the layout's a little off on these. Next one is town hall. That's the actual building. Here's electricity. I bumped heating oil up because we've been running up against the high end of our budget every year. Building maintenance stayed the same. Equipment repair went down by $3,000. The total impact to town hall was a $2,200 decrease by just, once again, reviewing the actuals in electricity, reviewing actuals of what we've been spending, and I was able to find a $2,200 decrease, which doesn't amount to much, but every little bit counts.
What was the equipment repair and maintenance?
Equipment repair and maintenance
We had
is...
10,000 for last year. Who contributed to that?
Equipment repair and maintenance from last year, that's the good old furnace that we, it makes me nervous. The equipment maintenance is the copier lease, postage machine rental, other necessary equipment to operate and maintain town hall. So we have copier leases, we have a
Because we bumped up from 2012 to 13.
Yes.
Decreasing amount, and then we back down almost.
Yeah. 2013, I was just coming in and I had walked through that building and saw that furnace and expected the worst. Once again, that's another thing that anything can happen. And so that was a contingency in the event something did happen like that, to be able to fix that without having to go back to the taxpayers.
Your confidence is better in furnace right now? That was it?
Well, we've been keeping up on it, and everything's pretty cold today. Today was the nervous day when I came into work. I get kind of nervous, but that old clunker. But no, everything seems to be running fine. The last time we had somebody come in and service it, they said it looked fine. There were no cracks in the heat exchanger or anything like that, so we looked like we were in pretty good shape.
You just freeze upstairs, that's
Yeah.
all, the heat just never rises
Yeah.
anyway.
The building's tough to heat.
I think it's time to put a wood stove back in upstairs.
It would be nice.
Yeah.
So that was as I said, that was a $2,200 increase.
Yeah.
Got some grates in the wall.
Skylights in the floor. Next one is planner code enforcement.
Yeah.
There's a $7,600 increase in the planner code enforcement and assessor. That's due to the 3% salary increase that's proposed, as well as the increase in health insurance. questions there? For the fire department, I'm showing a $58,000 increase, but that is actually, the fire chief was in a separate line last year, so, as a separate item. So if you were to take the 58,000,
It's only 41 for him, right?
minus 32. So you're looking at a $26,000 increase in the fire department budget. This takes into consideration Reynolds, who's the full-time. The fire chief has requested, and I think justifiably so, to move up to 30 hours a week. And that would cover his salary for those 30 hours a week. That's the majority of what you're going to see in the increase. As we move forward with the budget, that would be something that the selectmen need to vote on as to whether or not we want to make that move and increase his hours. By increasing his hours, that would also increase the cost to the town for the health insurance, which is reflected here. He would elect not to take out health insurance, but to take the stipend that's given to employees when they don't take the health insurance. So that would be half of the cost of the health insurance premium.
So without the extra hours, what's his salary?
His salary right now is, if it were to remain the same, it would be 52,000. No,
No,
No, I don't.
no.
We've got his salary here is 41,340 for your proposed.
In 2013, it was 32,000.
it was 32,000, but if you work full year, because that started in October. And so he's making $25 an hour right now. And so, $25 an hour, 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, it's 52,000 in my calculator.
It's only 30,000.
30 hours.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Actually, right now, he's only 25, right?
Yeah, so what's his salary at 25?
At 20 hours a week?
Well, we originally hired him for.
20 hours a week would be 26,000.
And we want to go, you're budgeting up to what?
41,340.
How many hours? How many more hours?
That's 30 hours a week
30.
with,
So going from 20 to 30?
correct.
And is he getting benefits now at 20 or?
He is not.
No.
That's a huge increase.
Yeah.
We're not going to discuss the merits of that tonight, right?
Not tonight, no. I want you guys to have some time to digest this.
Yeah, that's got to be justified to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's when they, when they come in and we have that final conversation, we will, that's what I've exactly explained to him, is that needs to be justified.
But this does include all of the under tool and minor equipment I see down there, all that other stuff that usually is capitalized as well, right?
That's correct. There was a $12,000 increase in vehicle maintenance, $2,000 increase in building maintenance.
$3,000 increase.
I'm sorry?
$3,000 increase in vehicle maintenance.
I'm sorry, yes, $3,000. And then this $58,000 increase also reflects the fact that the health insurance would go up by that stipend. So those would be cost-saving areas. We'll get to that decision when we move on. Any other questions on this item? Preliminary. Auto insurance, as you said.
Health insurance,
Oh, I know.
$7,000 increase,
Yeah.
Terrible.
almost double.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Bless you.
It's just
It
that,
is.
you know, yeah, it's just,
7% this year, and, it is. I have a call in the Maine Municipal Association to discuss the possibility of setting up health savings accounts for the employees. haven't heard back yet. I don't want the impact to the employees out of pocket. I don't want any out-of-pocket expense, and I want to see if they can save us some money by reconfiguring the way we do our insurance business. I don't have the highest of hopes, but I think that there's something out there that they can work with us with. So that will be brought to you as soon as I've heard back from MMA. Cemeteries, civil services. Civil services went up $300. And the reason for that is I am anticipating more ambulance revenue. We've been experiencing actually more ambulance revenue this year than we have in the past. That could get all shot because of Medicare cuts, but right now we're experiencing more ambulance revenue, so that had to be bumped up because that's 7% of collections. And that's a $300 increase.
So this $6,300, how much of that are you expecting revenue?
90,000. It's at 7% of collections, and I'm budgeting for $90,000 over 80,000 last year. And the year to the actual, we're actually at.
So are you saying this is to cover the amount that we don't collect?
No, because the billing.
service.
Oh, the billing service, okay. Oh, okay, oh, okay.
That's
They
what I was
use
trying
9%
to
what they
Yeah,
have.
they charge us 7%. Year to date, we are at $56,000. So we are on pace to beat the 80,000. And hopefully, they've been a little more aggressive, and Bruce Mullen has gotten a few proposals from other firms who charge less and propose to collect more. We're at about 65 to 70% collections of what we actually bill through the ambulance. And some of these companies are claiming that they can get us 80 to 85% of collection.
So of this $6,300,
Yeah.
we recoup some of that, most of that through the collections?
It's a cost of collections.
Right.
So
So
if
we're gonna pay the agency to go collect the money.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
so we're gonna authorize that.
Right, I understand that, but you know, when you collect the money, there's some coming back.
Yes.
So how much of what we pay them,
Yeah.
I mean, it is,
We get 97,
Yeah, we get 93%
93%.
of what they collect.
Mm.
We give them 7%, and we're collecting 66%.
Cost of doing business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's way more than we collected before we had the company on board, correct?
That's what I understand, yes.
Yeah.
Before it was pretty bad.
As well as that percentage that you just mentioned is a lot higher than what we've seen in the last couple of years as well.
We're on an uptick for some reason. Let's hope it stays that way. I don't know if it's because there's a lot more runs and possibly, bless you, Sam. But we are experiencing a little bit better returns, and Medicare's coming through with quite a few payments actually, so it's encouraging. I'd like to see the number higher, obviously. Bruce is just giving me the figures to weigh the cost benefits of changing the firm. He's got one from medical reimbursements, and he's waiting on 2 more. So we'll see if we can gather some more of those funds. Cemeteries increased by $1,700, and the reason for that was a miscalculation in 2013 to the salaries. So that's why you'll see a considerable increase there. Social services, Wendy's still working on that to get a definitive number. I had told her initially that we were gonna put into the budget. I didn't think I had a $100 increase in there. I might have had a number transposition error or something, but I thought I was going with 56. But it would be somewhere in that ballpark. She will have the information for you I don't know if the board is interested in having all of the presentations again this year, or if we just want to make a decision based on what people are asking for. And that's completely a decision of the board. Do you want to spend an evening listening to the presentations again, or do you just want the literature that these people have to offer?
To me, I think literature does it. I mean, Wendy generally knows which agencies work with us. And she has always recommended that we cover those agencies that give her the best service,
Absolutely.
and therefore give the town the best service.
And that's what she's got those now. I believe they'll come in right in that ballpark unless if anything drastic happens. So we're looking at a $9,900 decrease in the miscellaneous article because I've reduced the contingency from 20,000 to 10,000. In the interest of just trying to cut any costs that we can.
What category does the Kennebunk Free Library fall in?
We'll get to that in reserves and debt. And I can skip to that now if you want. If you look at this, the summary sheet,
Yeah.
Kennebunk Free Library was $10,200. We didn't budget anything this year. The initial request, when I met with Jim LeMay about a month ago, I apologize for that. They requested that the town of Arundel appropriate $50,000 to the Kennebunk Free Library in order to be reinstated to be at more of a similar ratio as to what Kennebunk is spending on the library. 50,000, 50,000. Sam Hall and I had a conversation. He's not on the board, but he's on the finance committee. He had a conversation with Alan Shepard and Joe LeMay. I haven't heard back from them yet. The proposal that's going to come back to us, I believe, is what will be known as a neighboring community appropriation. We would be limited to 500 or so library cards at the Kennebunk Free Library at a cost of $15,000.
How many do we have now?
Yeah.
We're set average between 400 and 500. Not nearly as many since then people have had to start paying for them. I believe Jill may have told me 100 or so have signed up for this year.
But again, if you look at the way those numbers were distributed, when it was in the 400 to 500, when it was a large number, it was only once or twice being used during the year. The frequency of use was down into the low hundred. There was not a large number of people who actually used it on a regular basis, as opposed to once or twice a year.
Yeah.
And that was all, in the past, that was all thrown in the mix as, this is the number of people who use it. Well, that's true, but if they use it once or twice, we're paying a lot of money for, you know.
If we're charged $15,000 for, I say 400, let's say we go $15,000, regular rate at the library, I believe, is $35 for a non-member municipality, looking at 430 people. So, we're paying, pretty much be paying the same price what the town would be paying it for a library card.
But, I think that people, the number that we have now, the 100 or whatever it is more indicative of what is actually being done, being used. Because I know there was a lot of smoke about this, a lot of uproar, but there are tons of other alternatives. Not that I'm not against libraries, but there are a ton of other alternatives. And I think that the reaction initially was just a shoot from the hip reaction. You're taking something. In all actuality, I think that's more of a number. If they really needed to do it, people would have gone out and bought the cards. Now, I think we might, add a little bit of numbers in there for the folks that really couldn't afford the $25. But I don't think the 400 or 500 people is right, and I don't agree with $15,000.
I'm not going to table that.
I put it there because that was the proposal that I heard, and when we get to that point, we will have that conversation again, I'm sure. It'll be interesting. as I said, this, the board could set aside an amount for people who can't afford library cards and have them, come to the town, apply like the general assistance scholarship, or just fund a certain amount of library cards, period, and cap it at that. And keep the money for the town and have them bill us per library card. We could work out something, I'm sure.
The question for us is whether we're gonna advance an article.
Yeah,
It just says going to be a separate article for the town of Holland, whether we're gonna advance an article that says, do you wanna pay $15K?
Right.
Or do we say, no, we're not even gonna do that? I might suggest to you, if we say we're not gonna do that,
Be ready.
I mean, I think people who use it should pay it, myself. I mean, just like when I go to the transfer station, I pay. I mean, that's the user fee. If I choose not to choose to use the transfer station, pay someplace else, well, but you're right, I mean, what kids don't have laptops and.
I mean, there's more out there today than just at the library. I mean,
I'd be interested to know, for those people who, the 100 people that did participate in the library, what were they using the library for? That would be.
I guess there would be kids in, like, story hour type stuff and other functions that they had down there.
If it's primarily
Rather than
kids,
somebody going
that's,
down.
that's.
Yeah, that would be my guess, rather than
I would
somebody
think
go
it
down and read
helps,
a
do
book. I
everything
mean,
on, do anything online. That'd be nice.
And if we have 100 people, and the card's $45 a piece, $35 a piece, then, and if we had put forth an account to actually not give that money to the library, but to have the library bill us for, but again, if you've still got those people that only use the library once a year, if they go in to get a library card, it's gonna be $35.
Yeah.
And if the town pays for that, they're more apt to just go waste the town's money and say, I'm gonna go get a library card and use it once a year. And to me, that's a waste of $35. That's my issue with putting a contingency fund for that, either do it or we don't.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, no, I think the library wants that, they want to be able to count on how much money they're going to get. They don't, they don't want, fluffy budget.
I'm not opposed to giving them money, I'm just certainly not gonna give, I don't wanna give them $15,000. I think it's.
What did we, oh, that's right, last year we gave nothing.
We had five.
We the people gave them nothing.
Right.
No, the year before that, the appropriation was 10,200. And then I believe the year before that, it was 9,600, and they slowly increased.
You had five last year, and that got all the way down to 0.
Yeah. Because 5, to me, would cover the number of people from Arundel who use the library.
And we've only, when did we start supporting the library? 03?
It was 9 years ago, I think, wasn't it about 9? I remember I looked at it in the.
Wasn't very long.
06 or 05, I thought.
Yeah. Arundel always went to whatever library they wanted to go to. The people at that end of town went to Bedford, and down my way went to Kennebunkport. Everybody, they wanted to go to a library, then they choose whichever one they wanted to go to. Now Lyman has a nice library, I understand.
And we've got smarter over here because in the past, we took their number that there was 400 people who used the library. We never said, well, what makes up that number 400?
Yeah.
What's their frequency?
We've got smart in justifying that cost.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what our job is.
absolutely, most certainly. Okay, so that's contingency. Eastern Trail, no increase there. As I said, this is a preliminary budget. I know that there are discussions about what to do with parking along the Eastern Trail. When we get into the discussion about reserves and debt, that's going to be that'll have to be factored into what we're deciding on.
I gotta get on it and get that done.
Yeah, Eastern Trail Association dues are remaining the same at $5,000. Eastern Trail, as of right now, will remain the same at $1,500 unless there's any considerable increases. I walked the entirety of the trail last year with Roger, and I agree mowing it is a lot of maintenance. I get a lot of complaints that we don't mow it every week. I walk in Scarborough, I walk in different parts of the trail, they don't mow it every week either. $1,500 is enough to cover.
It's a
They
trail.
always want more, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
The gravel isn't settling very badly. We can get stone and dust for free from the town of Kennebunk because they just want to get rid of it, so we'll take care of our section of trail. It's something that, at this point in time, we don't have a lot of money to put into it, and we don't need to put a lot of money into it because it's a stone dust surface trail. It's when there's going to, if there's a major malfunction of the trail, at that point in time, we'll have to make a decision on what to do, but
How much has Roger spent up there?
this year,
I thought you said he had spent more than $1,500.
I don't believe he's at more than 1,500, but I think he's right up against the 1,500. Eastern Trail. Does get quite a bit of use. It's not really in that bad a shape, and there's really, like I said, there's not a lot of. $1,349.20 is what he's up against now.
We're anticipating separate warrant articles on this event.
Yes.
We're talking, total of, okay, so a total of $7,500. In the grand scheme of things, what, well,
65.
I'm sorry, 65. What effect does that's $6,500 on the mill rate, that's like,
It's a
not
rounding
even a
error.
penny, right?
It's a rounding error. To be honest with you, I mean, we did it last year, we saved nothing by not funding the library.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it takes about $40,000 to make an impact on the mill rate. That's what we're looking at. So, that is very, very minor.
And it's the only park we have.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just an argument point that, because, somebody's willing to sit there and say,
Does the clearing that Roger just did recently come out of his highway budget or out of the Eastern Trail maintenance?
The clearing that they did came out of the other services budget because it was related to other, he wanted to do that cutting anyway. So that came out of his $73,000 that he has in other services.
the clearing right there, by the pass.
Yeah, they cut a good sized pine that was
Yeah,
two.
they cut a lot, but there's still more to get out to the line.
Yeah, exactly.
And if they did I measured that a while back. I know people don't like parking down there, but if you go out to the property line, you do a 2-to-1 slope with riprap. 2-to-1 requires that. And you put a 7 or 8 foot wide parking space, you still got 8 feet to the edge of pavement. And you could put, forgot what I think I had 12 or 14 cars on that right-hand side going east,
On the right hand going east. Okay.
where Roger just did the clearing.
Yep.
If he'd clear right out to the line,
Yep.
that's doable right there. And still maintain 8 foot buffer between the pavement and the parked car.
So even if we did, like what Phil said,
Yeah.
the money for that,
Mhm.
because that's considered one big park, couldn't the money for that come out of the park fund?
Our park reserve fund?
We could go to the public and ask them to use money from the park fund to do that, absolutely.
Right.
We could, I wouldn't feel comfortable because of the lack of clarity in that, the creation of that account. I wouldn't say, yes, let's go ahead and do it, and the board vote on it. I would recommend that we go to the public and ask them. But yes, in my opinion, it meets the definition because it's associated with the trail, and the trail is a park.
That, if it doesn't, the legislative body could decide to move that money.
Exactly.
You
So,
can
absolutely.
do it Either way.
Yeah.
But I think Todd's right.
I mean, a proposal that I'm looking at would be more money, and I definitely would want that to go to the voters, but, you know, there might be two options here, you know.
Certainly.
So we might want to do an article for town meeting to incorporate an amount up to.
Yep.
To be used out of park reserve.
Maybe two articles, you know, one for a bigger one and one for what Phil was just explaining.
Well, no, because if we did an up to article, whichever amount was the highest, say we had something that was gonna come out to $20,000, we said up to, knowing that we had two proposals, and we weren't sure which one we were gonna go with, we were gonna go with whichever one was the most feasible. But the most it would cost was $20,000, but it wasn't gonna raise your taxes because it was gonna come out of the park reserve fund.
My proposal, you know, is purchasing some land. So, you know, you purchase land, you make an offer on some land, and, you know, and then that's gonna be more than $20,000 by the time you get everything all done, right? I mean, it's not a big piece of land, it's, you know, it's a quarter of an acre at the most, but, you know, you gotta offer a fair market value for that. So, you know, between that, between the fill, between, you know, making the parking, it's gonna be more than 20 grand, easily. So, you know, I think going forward, something to chew on is maybe we work on two things that says, you know, if this passes, then we don't go to Phil's idea, and then we vote on Phil's idea if it doesn't pass, or something to that effect.
And the other option there is to make the warrant article worded so that we can use it for matching funds. I don't know if DOT is gonna have the funds this year, you never know if they're gonna have it, but they always have the safer routes to school and the safer pedestrian grants, where we could actually apply for a sidewalk that goes all the way from town hall
Yeah.
with the flashing lights, getting us all the way down there. And we might be able to, if we got that grant, we might actually be able to do that entire project for the cost of what it would cost us to just do the sidewalk parking. So, let me speak to Dan Stewart, see if he thinks there's going to be any funding in that next year, and see. I'll weigh some options, I'll bring you back some options on that, so we can have a separate article to have people vote on whether they're interested in doing it.
We're gonna get public input on all of that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's gonna be a lot of pushback against your
Well,
proposal.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not necessarily proposing that, I'm saying
No, I
there's
think
room
it's too
for
bad,
it.
but, you know, we've heard
Yeah.
already
Yeah.
that there's a number of
Yeah.
people who think that's a problem,
Yeah.
and your, you propose if we did, it obviously would be a much, I think, much safer alternative for those folks, although I think it's enough for down here,
Yeah.
what do I know?
All right, Public Works. It's a $19,000 increase. The only thing Roger asked for that's not there is the sixth man. And we had that conversation today, not knowing what's going to happen with reserves and debt. He understands not getting the sixth man, he just wants to keep asking for it so we don't forget about that there used to be a sixth man there. So that has not been forwarded. He's also discussed, and this is gonna come under reserve and debt, he discussed the possibility of going in on a new chipper with the town of Kennebunk. We currently share a chipper with them. He's not sure if it's gonna fly there, and he's not interested in purchasing the whole thing. And another thing he's interested in is rebodying one of his vehicles, and that would be to the tune of about $45,000. When we get to reserves and debt, we'll have that conversation. There are funds in the Public Works Capital Reserve to be able to cover the cost of that rebodying of that truck. So that's the only thing that Roger put in the pipeline that I needed forward, those three things, and it was a $19,000 increase.
What's his increase in vehicle maintenance?
Just general wear and tear on some of the older vehicles. He believes there may be a transmission in one of the Fords that needs to be replaced, not because there's anything wrong with the transmission, but the transmission housing is eaten through by chemicals. So that's where this increase came from.
The numbers just don't make sense from the sixth person if he's only looking for $24,000 for overtime.
He'll be in to discuss this with you at another meeting, but,
Yeah,
he'd have to convince you of that.
if you put the 6 man in that overtime budget, to go down.
Yeah.
$24,000 isn't gonna cover the whole person.
No, the 6 man will cost about $50,000 with benefits.
Yeah.
But the problem is even with the overtime, since it only snows on weekends and they've already worked their week, it doesn't matter, you're still going to have the overtime.
Yeah.
Even if you have, whether you had 10 people. When it comes, Friday nights and Saturdays and Sundays and it's snowing and storming, even though they've already worked their 40-hour week.
I hate to say it, but I'd love to see it snow during the week these days.
Yes.
If it would snow from, 6 in the morning till 1 in the afternoon, it'd be perfect. But
So his
it doesn't seem to
overtime,
work that way.
his overtime dollars are basically for weekend storms. It's not for the work that he has going on in the summer, he's got extra, it's just really for,
Yeah.
It's pretty much for snow plowing. They don't want a lot of overtime in the summertime unless it's a big project going
And then
on.
it snowed on Christmas Day, so
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
overtime.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's part-time laborers, everybody else, the summer people that come in and mow lawn and things like that. And the increase there is $19,395. Transfer station, used to have a waste disposal. You guys have been here a lot longer than I do. You remember the last time we did, in conjunction with Kennybunk, they do hazardous waste disposal days. That's something that I'm going to propose in the budget this year, because I know it's been at least 2 years since the town's done that for the residents. And once again, this is one of those numbers that I don't have a solid figure yet from Pine Tree Waste. They are interested in extending the contract through the length of time that we're allowed to, which is 5 years total. I've been told that there will be minimal to no impact on the town with the closing of Merck because of the way the operations have been reconfigured. I'm just waiting to meet with Stu again to make sure that that's the truth. I have no reason not to believe him. They seem to enjoy working in the town of Arundel.
This hazardous waste,
Yes.
do they charge if you go to Kennebunk today and get rid of that stuff?
They set up a special day on a Saturday where they take paints and all household hazardous waste. It's just a 1 day.
In Kennebunk?
In Kennebunk, yeah.
But that's free to us,
If you
right?
pay the $2,500, it's,
It's not free, they basically, it's Clean Harbors or somebody like
Right.
that sets up a hazardous collection, and you pay a portion of their setup fees. And then we pay per car, I believe, so they, I think
Because
they
there was
charge-
something here that we don't take. I remember DJ one day saying, when I was there, he told, go to Kennebunk, they'll take it for free.
What was it, sir?
I don't remember what it was.
Oh, I thought you said something.
Algorithms and things like that.
I think it's brush and stuff like that. We don't take it here for some reason, but they take it there.
Boy, I thought.
I gotta speak to him. I've been trying to have somebody put me in touch. I never even thought to talk to you, Phil. Les Layton. He is the one who does the brush in Biddeford. He takes all that chipping, all that brush from the city of Biddeford, and he trades them sand for it. They get winter sand for free in the city of Biddeford, from my understanding, by trading for the brush that's taken in. I don't know if you know Les.
I know less, but
Yeah.
I didn't know he was doing that.
Yeah, someone I know had turned me on to that, and I'm waiting for that person to have to go back to see him so I can have a conversation with him, meet him face to face and see if that's something that they can do for us. I talked to Roger about it, and he said that'd be, wouldn't be a bad idea. So that would be one way to reduce the cost, well, increase the availability of options for people at the transfer station. It is brush, because I get that all the time from people coming in and saying, just cut the trees down. There may be something else, but brush is one of the things.
The towns that I was reading an article in the paper about, some of the towns that saved quite a bit of money on their trash budgets. Was that because Merck closed and went to something else, or was it because they went to somebody with one stream? Or was that, were they going to RTC in Portland? Was it RTC something?
They were already with Casella, right?
Yeah,
Which towns are these?
Old Orchard was one of them, wasn't it?
I think so. I know that they were, whatever the company they were with, they were, something happened and it reduced the costs, and they were able to save quite a bit of money in there. But it may have been, what's the incinerator out there, if you're going up 295, that incinerator out there in,
Oh, yeah.
The regional waste, I don't know.
yeah, that's what I thought, it was regional RTC or something like that. It might have been the companies that, the towns that send their waste there
Okay,
that saved.
all right, let me,
I thought it was with Casella.
Casella, yeah, but that may be what the, why did I think it was RTC, that might be what the C stands for, Casella.
oh, Casella's been on the kick of purchase, so they just bought Toll Brothers.
Yeah,
And I think they're absorbing some smaller operations to try to streamline their efficiency. Stu's always telling me about these the new ideas in recycling that are coming down the road that are going to save us a lot of money, but we haven't seen them yet. So
well,
there's a lot of options there. We, you know, if the cost of the waste, taxpayers are still paying for it, there's the thoughts of going to pay per bag, not paper bag, but instead of weighing and getting a punch card, you just buy your bags and pay, you know, $1.50 a bag or whatever it is, and you don't have to pay as you throw it. You don't have to get punched and weighed. You just, this bag will fit 15 pounds of trash, cost you $1.50 for the bag, and you throw it away that way. There's other options to collecting at our transfer station that may help us realize more revenue. But with the contract with Casella, that would just give us negotiating to be able to get them to reduce our monthly fee, because we won't realize any of the revenues.
And last time we went out and bid on this, they were the only ones that,
And it went way up.
Went way up.
yeah.
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 Stu has been absolutely fantastic. There's been some major complaints that turned out to be not so major issues, but it was the way they were presented to me. And anytime I get a complaint like that, I call Stu, and he contacts the resident immediately and makes sure that the situation's cleared up, and if it's a misunderstanding, everything's clarified. He is very professional about that. And, you know, I get very few complaints. In the 2 years I've been here, year and a half I've been here, I've probably gotten 3, maybe 4 complaints. And Stu had the feeling that some of those complaints were associated with individuals who may have been employed by Merck and were disgruntled about the fact that they were closing it down, because he knew of a few of the complaints that had come through. But that's neither here nor there. They do a really good job about handling that transfer station, and Roger would rather not take it.
Yeah,
I don't think we can operate it
I
as
would
efficiently. as
rather
they
not
do.
give it back to him either.
What, can we discuss with them, though, not that I want to pay more, but increasing the cost of going away the trash so we can get this number down?
Certainly.
I mean, it hasn't gone up in a long time, I don't think.
And you know,
And it's pretty cheap.
yeah, I think it's wicked cheap, really.
It used to be, what was it? Because we started off with the same punch cards, but we were doing, I'd have to pull it up, but now it's 15 pounds for one.
55 cents or something like that, or $1.10, I don't know, you know,
Yeah,
it's,
it's $1.15 per punch, I believe is
Yeah.
what it comes out to.
$1.15 a punch.
I think, isn't it?
I mean, I always
I'd have to look at the
stare at that
machine.
chart, and, but
Yeah.
I don't think.
Let me talk to
It's
Stu.
good. I just think it's really,
Weight
it's not very
limits up there,
expensive,
so-
and,
Yeah,
you know, if we can, let the people who use it pay for it.
yeah.
Unfortunately, though, even if we raise the punch card part, that just goes directly to them, that doesn't.
But then they can use their contract to us,
Yeah.
because they got more revenue.
Yeah. Yeah, let me have that conversation with Stu. It might, you know, work out to be a pretty good deal, actually. Like you said, the people who aren't using it are being penalized for the people who are.
One second, exactly.
So that made it through expense and revenues, and so what I'm going to explain to you now is the summary. So on the summary page, proposed budget 1, you'll see a bunch of zeros. And I wanted to show you that if we didn't want to move the mill rate at all in the town of Arundel, and this is as accurate as I can be at this point in time, we would have $529,004, so $530,000 to allocate amongst all of the reserve funds that need funding. Does that, everybody understand what I'm saying there?
No, run by.
Say that again.
Okay, so if you look at the 2013 budget, there's a total of $2,864,995.
Yeah,
And that includes all of those reserves, 500,000 for roads, the branding, the website, capital equipment for fire department and public works. If you take out all of the reserves and debt, and you want to keep the mill rate steady, you want to keep the mill rate at 14.50, there's $530,000 that we can allocate to the capital equipment reserves proportionately to be able to reduce the impact to the taxpayer. That is a discussion that we really need to have, I feel. Go ahead, Simone.
Does that, but, because you're saying if we don't get revenue sharing,
Right.
we
Now,
have to cut
that's
200.
different.
Well, we have to cut out 234, so that we have actually of what you could reallocate
Exactly,
back,
right.
right?
And that's where I talked about what we might have to have a contingency. If we're going to lose revenue sharing, what we're going to need to do, we'd lose $234,000. So we would only have $295,000 to allocate to roads and debt, unless we go back and reconstruct the budget. The budget as presented, if we lose revenue sharing, we're looking at $295,000 to allocate. At that point in time, if it's uncertain, what I would recommend is that we allocate the minimum amount to each reserve account with the contingency that whatever portion of revenue sharing we actually receive will be distributed at the same proportion as to what we've appropriated this year. Does that make sense? What I'm explaining? I think that's the only way that I can responsibly present to you a budget that I, this early in the game, know isn't going to be a considerable spike in tax rates. It's not Roger's favorite option. We had a conversation today. He said, you know, he hopes to get whatever he can, and deferring maintenance is never a good thing, but short of any other option, that's where we're at. That is basically what this whole thing boils down to, is if we keep our revenue sharing, we have $530,000. If we lose our revenue sharing, we have $300,000. And we need to figure out how to disperse that, or we need to begin cutting departments.
But there are a few, I'm sorry.
So your comment, when you started talking about this, in 2013 was, $2,864,995.
Yep.
That gave us, plus the RSU stuff, that gave us our mill rate.
Yep.
If we were to spend that same amount,
$2,864,995.
right,
Yeah.
the mill rate would stay flat, right?
Except for the RSU.
Theoretically,
Exactly.
except for the RSU, and that's what I said at the beginning, where I believe an increase with the RSU could be absorbed by a municipal valuation, that if we increase our town by $3 million this year, that's going to offset that impact. So not knowing what the RSU is doing, not knowing what the county is going to do, which is a very small amount anyway, in order to spend the same amount of money on the municipality, that's the number we're looking at, $2,864,995.
Right. So, never mind the RSU.
Yep.
You said to keep the mill rate flat.
Yep.
So, would this number, the 529,000, wouldn't that cut the mill rate down? Because it's $529,000 less than last year.
What you see there, that $2,335,000, that would be a considerably lower mill rate. What I'm saying is you take that $530,000 and now start plugging it into reserves to bring us back to $280,000, then you'll have the same mill rate.
Yeah, okay.
Are you
Okay,
understanding?
yeah.
Then that'll bring you back to the same mill rate we were at. Yeah,
And the way you started explaining it, I'm thinking, wait a minute, how can a mill rate be flat if the numbers is, yeah.
No, if we reproportion that $529,000 into the reserves and debt, and also you'll notice that I put in the $15,000 for the library as well, so that can move. But at about $530,000 is what we would have to apportion between those different accounts.
To the zeros.
Yeah, to the zeros in order to keep. Branding study, I don't see any need. Website improvements, we are doing all right now. Fire chief is no longer there. Municipal building reserve is something that's going to need to be addressed. But that's where we're at. We've got 530,000 or 300,000, depending on what the governor does. And it's not an easy thing to deal with.
If you subtracted all of these items that are down zero, that gets us to our 529.
Yep, the 529. Yep,
If that assumes that we still have revenue sharing,
correct.
so if we don't have revenue, doesn't that bring that up to 8?
No, that brings it down to 3.
How does it bring it down? We don't have the money.
Right, so we can only bring,
Oh, we're gonna
we can
spend that
only-
to offset
we can
against that,
spend
okay.
now, or we can only spend 300 if we lose.
Right.
So yes.
Mhm. Okay.
And so that's what we're dealing with now. Questions, comments? Keeping in mind that I kept the $300,000 from an undesignated fund, because I think that that's a fair number to use to apply toward the mill rate reduction. Very rarely are we going to spend to the penny everything that we budget, and I'm hoping that I'm wrong. I don't try to over budget any of my revenues, so typically we'll come in and we're not gonna use that entire $300,000. Last year, I think we used about $170,000 of it. And so, to keep that number there to reduce the mill rate is helpful. But that's where we're at.
Do you think we're gonna have any carry forward at all? And did we have any last year?
Yes, last year we ended up using 177,000 out of the undesignated. So we were 230,000 to the good. We still had to use undesignated, but we didn't use the 300, 450. We didn't use the 450. So, ideally we'll get to a point where we can accurately, or I can be comfortable enough to hope that if I say 300, we can come in and not even need to use that 300, but saying that we're using it is reducing the mill rate to the people.
Are you proposing that we reduce the mill rate? Is that what this is?
No. What I'm proposing, Dana, is, let's say we don't lose our revenue sharing. I'm proposing that we bring this and
Fit it in there
allocate
somewhere
it
here.
to bring this number here.
Right.
So then we'll get us back up to 5,864 or in that ballpark. And then, nope, go ahead.
But not all of these, we have to put back in.
Right, we don't have to put them all back in, but we also can't, we have to think about where we're gonna put them. And I don't like to pick on roads, but $500,000, that would give us $19,000, that would give us $30,000 to allocate elsewhere. So we'll have to make a shift somewhere in order to spread that to the reserves that we need.
No, well, if you was such branding studies,
Yeah.
that's 25.
That's
I
$25,000.
looked down, is the fire department looking for $50,000, is that reserve fund for improvement?
They have a considerable reserve fund. We're in the process of seeing what it would cost for a new ambulance, because that ambulance is getting older. They have a considerable reserve, and I think we can either wipe out that reserve fund and buy an ambulance, or purchase an ambulance and finance, put half down, and do a 3-year lease purchase for less than the $50,000 we're putting aside now.
Well, this is still a bigger issue, because one of the things the chief is gonna do is look at the whole picture. Okay, and,
And he will be coming to the
we're
board.
finally putting some money aside, we've never passed.
Yeah.
And the $12,000 for bus, that doesn't,
That wasn't funded.
yeah,
We didn't do that last year either.
yeah.
Did we zero that out, or did we fund something for repairs? We did some,
I think
do we
they
give
actually
zero? I can't
slowed
remember.
down.
No, this year in Jen's budget, we funded $3,000 for repairs.
I thought there was some discussion.
Yeah,
There's something.
it was a motion that was made because the bus was in such good condition, there was a motion made to cut Jen's budget down of
Okay.
the amount for the bus.
Yeah.
And I think Diane's the one that made that
I
motion.
believe so. And knock on wood, it's a wonderful purchase by a local contractor of ours who found it at an auction. But that's where we're at. I'd really like you guys to think about what direction we move in next.
So where does the budget committee come into play on this now?
Once you guys have made a decision that we're comfortable with this budget, it'll move to the the budget board.
And, I mean, don't question, but what are they gonna do different than what we just did? Or what we're gonna do moving forward?
They'll do the same exact thing.
But they might come to different conclusions.
Right.
Thus, the board of selectmen will recommend, and the budget board will recommend. On occasion that happens.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
And that's exactly,
But I think, you know, I think what we need to do is we don't have any meat on the bones here, see what, you know, I know Roger likes the road dollars, but maybe those gotta be impacted, but I don't know what these other folks are thinking about, what they need. I mean, we probably gotta hear from Roger as far as capital improvements, fire department,
yeah.
and, you know, see what they can get away with.
And that'll be the next phase in your
Yeah.
review of the budget,
Yeah.
meeting with them. I don't know if you, I would rather not do it at this coming Monday's meeting, just so I have time to get everything laid out a little bit better. If you're interested in an extra meeting, or if you wanna just schedule the first meeting in February, I'm happy with either one. Right now, we don't have, technically, we should have a budget to the budget board. I can present this to the budget board and say, this is what we're looking at, but until you've, to the selectmen and made decisions this year, I'm not forwarding it to the budget board, because the budget board and I spent several months last year, and I really don't wanna go through that again. They don't wanna go through that again, so I wanna do this, the way I see it, as it is explained in the charter, is it's the selectmen's budget with a review by the budget board. That's my opinion, and that's my reading of what it says. So if you want to have a separate meeting, and I know you guys don't, you know, you like it even less than I do probably. Let's see, the next scheduled meeting is Monday night, and that just doesn't give me time to turn around. I'd like to get this format tightened up a little bit better, so it's easier to read, get you the pages that I left out. The first meeting in February is the 11th. Or we could do something on the 6th. It's totally up to you guys. If you'd rather meet in a separate independent date, or if you'd like to put that as the only thing on the agenda on the 11th and go through this budget and come up with some answers.
First thing, I'd like to get this done as soon as possible.
All right? We can do the 4th, 5th, 6th. I'll get the whole, any night of the week.
Fourth would be our regularly scheduled meeting.
No, 11th.
Oh, yeah, correct, you're right, yeah.
So if you're interested in the 4th, I'll,
Is that Monday night?
That's a
That
Monday
is.
night.
The RSU
okay.
meets
That's an
on,
RSU Monday.
RSU meeting Monday. So it would have to be Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay, 5th of the 6th works for me. Does the 5th, anyone prefer,
I can't do Tuesdays, I got basketball.
okay,
Wednesday?
Wednesday the 6th?
That Wednesday,
You can do?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll set a meeting for Wednesday the 6th, and we'll start making any changes that you might propose to the bulk of the budget, and then meeting with the department heads to see exactly where they're at. Like I said, I met with them briefly, let them know this is where we're at right now, this is what I'm going to propose, because short of that, this being this far out, I can't make a definitive answer and let them know exactly what they did.
Just for example, the stuff that you've funded in the past, anything over that, it's not a lot of wiggle room. They're talking less than $100,000.
It's not a town with a lot of fluff, I'll tell you that right now. We've got a custodian in the school, that guy gets big bucks, but.
Yeah.
He's worth it.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's worth it.
But yeah, there's not a lot there, and the increase in recreation is covered by the increase in revenue, you know, so,
Yeah, she's bringing in a lot of revenue.
yes.
Yeah, look at Public Works, that's primarily an added person.
Yeah.
If I actually slid over from one category to that one, it's just,
So all we really have to
There's
think
not much
about is
there.
whether or not to increase his hours. Because if we
Yeah.
increase his hours, by increasing his hours, we're putting him into benefits.
And if they have, and play it out another year and see how it works. It's working much better than it was before, in my opinion. He is making a lot of progress, a lot of changes, the morale has been good, really good. But those are the kind of decisions we're gonna have to make.
yeah, we need to talk about that too. Because, you know, anytime you get a new position and staff, they gotta put in more time until you get the kinks worked out. It's 30 hours necessary down the road. Everybody thought 20 was gonna get it done. No question about it. Sure.
24 or
Yeah.
Somewhere, yeah.
A little less, maybe a little less than benefits.
I just hate to touch that road, but
No, I hear you.
finally making some headway.
So that's that. Read it over, come up with some thoughts. Throw them at me, I'll send you the rest of the pages. And we'll get this thing knocked out and over the budget board.
And all this other information has gone to the town attorney,
Not the town attorney, the insurance company.
insurance company.
Yep, I was hoping to have some sort of an update, but I have nothing. As soon as I've heard back, I'll definitely let you know. I thought that was interesting, and something that the selectmen should become aware of. Merry Christmas to us. Or to
Any other business? Motion to adjourn?
Did you want to add on the other, you were going to inform us of, you know, we talked a little bit about this before, but we were looking at the meeting.
that, there is, I don't have any updates, I just wanted you, did you go through the paperwork?
Yep.
I wanted you to be aware that the town has been named as party to that claim, and if I have anything to bring to you that is sensitive to the public, we'll have an executive session at a regular meeting. But as of right now, that's in the hands of the insurance company. The police report, everything would indicate that. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know what you're talking about, but obviously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
read the paperwork.
Insurance companies have lawyers who deal with this stuff all day, every day.
Oh, that's not.
Print it out?
Yeah.
I have an additional packet.
Oh, that, oh, okay, I did read that.
Oh, okay, all right. I was like, what did you?
Okay, no.
All right.
Okay, now I know what you're talking about, it's like Hill Road. Jeez.
Make a motion, we adjourn?
All right, all in favor?